Chapter 3. The Ship That Forgot the Wind. It came at dawn. A mast on the horizon. Crooked. Listing. No flag, no sail. Just a length of blackened wood rising and falling like the last breath of something drowning. Mateo saw it from the bluff. He wasn't the first. Word spread before sunlight had even broken the rooftops. By the time the vessel reached the breakers, 100 people were standing on the beach. No one called out. No one waved. The hull struck sand and leaned sideways, cracking with a wet groan. A chunk of railing snapped off and floated a few feet inland, carried by the tide. Then nothing. No movement. No colors. Just stillness. Until someone pointed. The man who crawled out was barely there anymore. His skin had turned to the color of boiled leather. His hands trembled so hard he could barely grip the ladder down the side of the ship. It took him 10 full minutes to reach the beach. He collapsed before his knees touched the sand. The priest was the first to reach him. His robe was torn at the sleeve, his sandals coated in dry salt. He carried a flask and a cloth. He tilted the man's head gently and gave him water, not from a well, but from a flask wrapped in sailcloth. The man gagged, then drank. He whispered something Mateo couldn't hear. A second figure emerged mid-morning, a woman this time, older. She wore a dress, colorless, clinging, nearly see-through. Her feet were bare. She clutched something in her left hand, a crucifix wrapped in rope. She didn't speak, not even as the water touched her feet. It was the man who told them what had happened. They carried him on a board of driftwood to the shade of the dock warehouse, where he lay still for hours, breathing thin and fast. When he finally opened his eyes, he didn't seem to recognize anyone. His lips moved like they were praying, but eventually, words came. We set for Cadiz, then Huelva, Faro, Palos. All of them. Closed. Quarantine signs on the piers, arches on the walls. They shouted, told us to turn around. We tried. Then the wind stopped. He wept when he said it. Not with tears. His eyes were too dry. Just sound. The quiet, involuntary kind. We floated for days. 10, maybe 12. The cook was the first to go. Then the second mate, then the carpenter. Someone found their wine. There was a fight. They stopped looking at each other like other men. I hid in the salt bin and stayed there for... When I came out, there was only bones. Bones and blood. I heard singing. He stopped. The priest touched his shoulder and he flinched. Mateo looked away. The rumors reached the town square before the sun touched the bell tower. The bell rang once, off-key, as it had in the past 2 days. By midday, Las Palmas began to fall apart. Storefronts were shuttered. Wells were circled with stone and guarded. A crowd outside the city storehouse shouted for rice, then broke the door with an iron rod. One man was killed, but no one said how. The magistrates declared a lockdown. The gates to the inner fort were barred. Armed men stood outside the south warehouse with halberds and half-armor, none of them trained. Back at the Justa, the crew gathered in silence. Morales stood with his foot on a coil of rope, eyes fixed on the harbor. Dominguez broke the stillness. We'll end up like them. No, Julio said. We've got sails, a ship that floats. We're not. We have no wind, Mateo cut in, and almost no water. They were quiet again. Morales spoke without turning. Cadiz is closed, so is Huelva. Maybe all of Castile. We sail anyway. Why? Someone said. So we could starve in the open water? Morales turned now. Because the streets are turning red. Because they're sealing buildings. Because we won't be men much longer if we stay. He paused. If we die out there, at least we die facing home. Mateo sat alone at the edge of the ship that night, staring into the tide. He had filled his flask again that morning at the market basin. It tasted like stone, like something wrong beneath the island itself. He didn't know if they would make it to Castile. He wasn't sure Castile still existed, but he knew what was coming for the island. He could already hear it. The bell rang again, somewhere behind him high on the hill. It sounded like it was trying to sing and didn't remember the tune. That night, Morales gathered the crew below deck. "We leave before first light," he said. No one nodded. No one objected. They just sat there, scattered across crates and barrels, soaking in the finality of it. Julio leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Even without wind?" Morales looked at him. "We row and pray." "To what?" Morales didn't answer. They made their plan with bitter care. The main storehouse, one of the old city buildings repurposed after the first famines, was sealed tight behind barred windows and a front gate guarded by 2 men from the local watch. Neither were soldiers. Both had looked terrified when Mateo last passed them. "We don't hurt them," Morales said. "No blood, just what we need." Dominguez volunteered. Then Ronaldo. Then Mateo. They'd go after midnight carrying rope and an oil lamp. Quiet, efficient. They'd take dried food, salt, whatever clean water remained, and be gone before the bells. They moved through the alleys, slick with dew and salt. Every window they passed was dark now. The city no longer watched itself. Shadows sagged against walls. A cat darted across the street but made no sound when it landed. At the back of the storehouse, a small hatch door faced the alley. Morales had spoken with a boy who once worked there, told them the latches could be forced with a crowbar and a boot. He was right. Inside, the air was warm and strange, too still. The smell of flour and dried fish mixed with something sharper. Wax, mold, and old rope. They split up quickly. Dominguez packed dry oats and sacks of rice. Mateo found a few sealed clay jugs. He opened one and sniffed. It was clean. He didn't remember the last time water had smelled like nothing. It happened near the exit. A figure stepped into their path. Young, no armor. Just a wooden baton and a belt 2 sizes too big. The guard raised his hands. He didn't speak. His mouth was open, but nothing came out. Mateo stepped forward, rope in hand. "We're not here to hurt you." Eyes wide. "Please," he said. "Don't take everything." "We're not." The 3 men surrounded him. They moved quietly, gently. They tied his wrists and his feet and laid him down against a sack of barley with a cloth in his mouth. Mateo adjusted the knot himself. The boy was crying. He didn't try to stop it. They left through the hatch and slipped back into the alley. At the end of the street, someone was waiting. The priest. He stood with his back to the wall, arms crossed, cloak hanging loose around his shoulders. His beard had grown wild, his eyes, somehow, had not. "You'll need more than oats," he said. No one answered him. He stepped forward and handed Mateo a small leather satchel. It was sealed with red wax. "I've written a letter," he said quietly, "to a bishop in Seville. I don't know if he's still alive. I don't know if Seville still exists. But if you make land, take it there." Mateo took the letter without speaking. "I've done all I can here," the priest said. "But maybe you can bring something back." He turned and walked back into the dark. They reached the harbor road in silence. The wind had not returned. As they rounded the final corner towards the docks, Mateo stopped short. There were too many shapes on the pier. "Someone talked," Dominguez said. They dropped low behind a stack of crates. Voices echoed across the stones. Low, frantic, muffled by cloth and breath. "There's a crowd," Ronaldo said. "Maybe 50, maybe more, waiting for us," Dominguez added. "Or the ship." They moved back from the dock edge, hearts pounding. Mateo clutched the satchel tighter. From where they crouched, they could see torches, moving now. The crowd was pressing towards Ayusta. "Captain will never hold them," Ronaldo whispered. A hand touched Mateo's shoulder. It was the priest again. The priest crouched beside them, There's an opening, he whispered. North Dock, between the old salt sheds. How do you know? Dominguez asked. I know my island, the priest answered with sadness in his eyes. Mateo looked at him in the dark. Why are you helping us? The priest didn't answer right away. His voice was flat when it came. Because you might make it, and we won't. He looked down at Mateo's hands. You still have the letter? Mateo nodded. The priest stood. Follow me. The alleys around the old salt sheds were tight and cracked, their stone joints lifted by heat and time. The shadows were deeper here, lanterns too far off to catch them. They moved single file, sacks strapped to their backs, boots wrapped in cloth. The priest led them to a crumbled retaining wall and pointed. There. Go now. The gap opened onto the harbor just behind the Eusta's aft quarter. They were barely 50 feet from the boarding plank which had been drawn up. The crowd was pressing at the pier, shouting now, not screaming. Not yet. Dominguez grunted. We'll never reach. A rope dropped from the stern. Morales' voice came low from above. Climb. Now. They went up fast. One by one, sacks slung over shoulders, fingers raw on the rope. Mateo was last. As he climbed, he glanced back. The crowd was turning, faces catching the movement, arms pointing. He hauled himself over the side. Shouts broke behind them. The mob surged forward, dozens of figures pushing past crates and barrels, slamming into the pier rail. Cast off! Morales roared. Dominguez and Julio were already pulling oars from the holds. Someone was cutting the rear rope. Hands grabbed the boarding plank. Men screamed. A woman threw a basket. Another hurled a rock that struck the mast with a dry crack. Someone reached the edge of the hole and tried to climb it. Mateo kicked. The man fell, hit the water, vanished. Then the scream. A woman on the pier, young, hair matted to her face, was running. She held something wrapped in linen. She reached the edge and she threw. The bundle hit the deck with a dull thud and rolled once. Silence. Mateo steps forward. A baby. Maybe a year old. Not crying, just breathing. The mother stood frozen on the pier, arms still reaching. And someone tackled her. Others surged past. The Eusta groaned, pulled free from the dock. The oars dipped, one broke in half. The others rowed harder. More figures hit the water, trying to swim. They didn't make it. Morales stood at the tiller. His eyes scanned the deck. Ration the rice. We fish as we go. Nobody touches the baby but Mateo. No one argued. They drifted beyond the reef as the sky turned gray. Behind them, Las Palmas bled smoke. The church bell rang once, then again, and then it stopped.